The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Marcus Williams pushed his cart down the marble hallway of Meridian Industries, his weathered hands gripping the handle with the same quiet dignity he'd carried for 23 years. At 62, his back ached from decades of mopping floors and emptying trash bins, but his eyes still held a warmth that could soften the hardest executive's bad day. To most people passing by in their tailored suits and clicking heels, he was invisible, just part of the building's infrastructure, as unremarkable as the elevator or the water cooler. They saw the uniform, the cleaning supplies, and made their assumptions. They called him just the janitor. They had no idea they were looking at the man who would soon save their company's soul. The first time Marcus met Richard Hawthorne, the CEO was sitting on the bathroom floor at 2 a.m., his $1,000 suit wrinkled, his face buried in his hands. Marcus had been finishing his night shift when he heard the muffled sobs echoing from the executive washroom. Most people would have walked away, minded their own business. Not Marcus. "You all right in there, sir?" he'd called softly through the door. Richard looked up, startled and embarrassed. Here was the company's most powerful man, reduced to tears in a bathroom, discovered by a janitor whose name he didn't even know. The irony wasn't lost on him. "I'm fine," Richard lied, his voice cracking. Marcus pushed the door open slightly, his kind eyes meeting Richard's red-rimmed ones. "My mama always said that when someone says they're fine at 2 a.m. on a bathroom floor, they're usually anything but fine." Something about the gentle authority in Marcus's voice, the complete absence of judgment, broke down Richard's walls. The words poured out. His wife's cancer diagnosis, the crushing pressure of keeping the company afloat during the recession, the board members circling like vultures, questioning every decision. Marcus listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding, his presence somehow making the sterile bathroom feel like a sanctuary. "You know what I see when I clean these offices every night," Marcus finally said. "I see family photos on desks, I see thank you cards from customers, I see evidence of good work being done. This place isn't just a business, Mr. Hawthorne. It's a community. And communities take care of each other." That night began an unlikely friendship. Richard started staying late, not just to work, but to catch those few minutes with Marcus when the building was quiet and pretense could be set aside. Marcus would share stories from his life. Raising 3 kids as a single father after his wife died, putting 2 through college on a janitor's salary, the pride he felt watching his daughter become a nurse. Richard reciprocated, revealing the boy from a trailer park who'd built an empire but was terrified of losing everything. Marcus never asked for anything. He never mentioned his own struggles, the medical bills from his grandson's leukemia treatments, the second mortgage he'd taken to help his son start a business, the arthritis that made every night shift harder than the last. He simply showed up, every night, with that same quiet kindness that asked nothing in return. When the federal investigators came for Richard 3 years later, alleging embezzlement and corporate fraud, the media circus began. Reporters camped outside the building, former allies distanced themselves, and the board of directors called for his immediate resignation. The charges were serious: misappropriation of company funds, securities fraud, conspiracy. If convicted, Richard faced 30 years in prison. The evidence seemed damning. Financial records showed large transfers to offshore accounts. Witnesses testified about suspicious meetings and altered documents. Richard's high-priced legal team did their best, but the prosecution's case appeared airtight. The business press had already written his obituary, painting him as another greedy executive who'd stolen from shareholders and employees. But Marcus knew something they didn't. He knew about the late nights when Richard reviewed every expense report personally. He knew about the CEO's secret visits to the children's hospital where his grandson had been treated, the anonymous donations that had funded a new wing. He knew about the times Richard had passed up bonuses to preserve jobs during layoffs, the scholarship fund he'd quietly established for employees' children. Most importantly, Marcus knew the truth about those offshore accounts. The day Marcus took the witness stand, the courtroom was packed. Reporters filled the gallery, waiting to hear what this simple janitor could possibly add to such a complex financial case. The prosecution had called him, expecting routine testimony about cleaning Richard's office and perhaps overhearing incriminating conversations. But Marcus had other plans. "I've been cleaning offices for over 2 decades, he began, his voice steady and clear. "You learn things when people think you're invisible. You see the real person when they think nobody's watching. The prosecutor smiled confidently. Mr. Williams, did you ever observe the defendant engaging in suspicious activities? Moving documents, making secretive phone calls. Marcus looked directly at Richard, who sat pale and resigned at the defense table. I observed Mr. Hawthorne doing a lot of things. I observed him crying over employee layoff letters, trying to find ways to avoid them. I observed him visiting the hospital every week to see my grandson Tommy, bringing comic books and hope when we thought we might lose him. And I observed him transfer money to offshore accounts, money that went straight to a foundation supporting families like mine who couldn't afford their children's medical care. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The prosecutor's smile faltered. Mr. Hawthorne never wanted credit, Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger. He made me promise never to tell anyone about the foundation. But I can't sit here and watch a good man be destroyed by lies. Those transfers weren't theft. They were the most generous thing I've ever witnessed. He saved my grandson's life, and hundreds of other children's lives, with his own money. Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder, worn from handling. I kept every receipt, every hospital bill, every thank you note from families who received help. I kept records because my mama taught me that when someone does good, someone should remember. The prosecution wants you to believe Mr. Hawthorne stole money, but I'm here to tell you he gave it away. He gave it to people like me who had nowhere else to turn. The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order as reporters frantically scribbled notes and photographers captured the moment. But Marcus wasn't finished. You all see me as just a janitor, he said, looking around the packed room. Someone who cleans up after important people. But I see things you don't. I see character when nobody's watching. And Mr. Richard Hawthorne has more character in his little finger than most people have in their whole body. He's not perfect. None of us are. But he's good. And good people don't deserve to be destroyed by people who can't tell the difference between generosity and greed. The prosecution's case crumbled over the next 3 days. Marcus's testimony led to the discovery of the foundation's records, proving that the missing money had funded medical treatments for over 200 children. Character witnesses came forward. Doctors, nurses, families who'd been helped, all testifying to Richard's anonymous generosity. The real embezzler turned out to be the CFO who'd manipulated records to hide his own theft, using Richard's charitable transfers as cover. Richard was acquitted on all charges, but more than that, he was vindicated. The man who'd been painted as a villain was revealed to be a hero who'd simply been too humble to defend himself properly. At the victory celebration, as champagne flowed and lawyers celebrated their win, Richard found Marcus in the hallway, quietly preparing to return to work. You saved my life, Richard said, his voice thick with emotion. How can I ever repay you? Marcus smiled, that same gentle smile that had comforted a powerful man on a bathroom floor years earlier. You already did, Mr. Hawthorne. You showed me that there are still people in this world who care more about doing right than looking right. That's worth more than money. But the overtime, the legal preparation, taking time off work to testify, let me compensate you, at least. Marcus shook his head. My mama used to say that when you do the right thing, the universe finds a way to balance the books. I don't need compensation. I need to finish cleaning the 3rd floor before morning. 6 months later, Marcus received a letter informing him that an anonymous donor had established a scholarship fund in his name, providing full college tuition for the children of service workers. His grandson Tommy, now in remission, would be the first recipient. The letter was unsigned, but Marcus recognized the handwriting. They still called him just the janitor, and Marcus was fine with that. He understood something that the executives and lawyers and reporters didn't. True power isn't in the title on your door or the size of your bank account. It's in the choice to see the humanity in others, to speak truth when it matters, and to stand up for what's right even when you're the only one standing. Every night, as Marcus pushed his cart through those marble hallways, he carried with him the quiet satisfaction of knowing that sometimes, the most important person in the building is the one everyone overlooks. And sometimes, just sometimes, being just the janitor is exactly enough to change everything.